Hi, my name is Romans. I work for Agile Toolkit and we build better tools for PHP developers to use to simplify their everyday life. And in my past video, I was talking about Agile Data and how this particular framework helps us bridge the gap between ORM components and the query components. We managed to create an entity which was converted into the query, and I wanted to kind of step a little bit back and look into the Agile data which we have experienced so far. So we had this business logic where we created a new entity of the client, and business logic lives in the main model kind of. And then we used the persistence in order to generate the query, and this query was given back to us. So we were able to retrieve this query, and this is important because we can now use this query from the client in some other entities. And I want to show you one last thing, which I forgot to show you last time. And if you remember, we have created a new client, DB over here, and I was able to take him and convert it to select query. What is also really important is the ability to take a client and express just a single field. The field we'll be interested in is called name, and so this query over here is essentially says I want to request the name from the client and give me query for that. So my next demonstration will be focused around references. The references in Agile data is a kind of very similar to relations in traditional ORMs or in a database, except that they are different. The reference is defined between two models. So in order to build the first reference, I'll have to duplicate the client into project and then just adopt it. Okay, and well, since I'm building the project model, let me also add a couple of additional fields over here, such as budget. And since I'm defining one by one, to use field, so budget, I can also specify type mapping. Reference describes the ability for one model in Agile Toolkit to generate another model. And for instance, if we're dealing the project, it would have one client. This is how we describe our reference. And once we have described it, we will be able to traverse it. Now, I also want to modify my client definition to add a many relationship, which could be called project, and it will reference a project model. Let's now get back to console. I have to close it and start again in order to see what's going on. And I want to start with my project test. See if I can retrieve the project. And it works fine. I'd like to load one record, which is record number 4. Okay, so if I do that, I get a new client, client object, which is preloaded with the ID number 2. And I can also get name over here, which is Nike. But I have to say, If we want to load multiple projects and we need the name of the client for each of them, this strategy will generate a lot of queries. This is one of the things people who use ORM have to deal with on a regular basis, and they use a pattern called either eager loading or lazy loading. And essentially it's about fetching all the clients first and then plugging the information into the project. Now Agile Toolkit doesn't have any of that. Instead, it uses a different concept which is called field importing. Now, because we have a relationship between a project and the client, and I can actually use getRefs method to see all the references between those two. If I use this one, client ID, from the client model inside my projects model, just like this. And now if I want to export a list of my projects, you'll see that all of them are now having a new field called client. If you look at the query, it is now being extended by including this subquery over here. Let me show you another concept. This time I will be looking at the clients. So I want to do C equals new client DB, and I'm going to do C export. Right? It's the same as it was before, but this time I want to use reference. Okay, let's load and say record number 1, and then traverse into the client. Into the client's project. So this is how I do it, and you'll notice if I do that, it gives me an object. It doesn't actually perform any query just yet, it just gives me an object, and it says this object has a specific condition. If I run export, it will show me only the project by the client 1. Okay, function select, and this is the query I'm getting. But let's look at this field, budget. I can actually do a field budget which expresses this field while maintaining the condition. And let's modify it. And instead of requesting for field, let's say I want to run a function of sum on the budget. And now I have select sum budget from project where condition is met. Now this is obviously pretty good for a single record, and I can actually execute this, and I get the total of 3 projects for McDonald's, which is quite precise. So that generates a single query. But what if I want to do it for all the columns, all the rows? And it's really easily doable. So when I'm doing ref, it builds this condition over here. If I do ref link, the condition is built in a slightly different way. It says client is a client ID. Now this query will not execute if I try, but I can use it as a part of the subquery inside the client model. And to be honest, I don't have to go through all of this and build it like that. Instead, I can take the reference for the project, which contains everything I need, and just say add field total another new field. So if I'm going to do the export of the clients now, you'll see that each client has a field called total, and for some of them it actually contains a number. If I want to see how it's being built, I can do action select, and I see there's a subquery which is using exactly the technique I explained in order to fetch the total budget per client. We have looked into ability between references, queries, and fields to intermingle. So I used a reference in order to build a query which was used inside a field, and I used field to influence the query that is used in a reference. It's kind of working both ways, but in Agile data, the whole thing is very fluid, and I could say it's very agile. So I hope you like this video, and I will continue next video with the next big thing, which is called datasets. So I hope you join me in watching that one. Thank you very much.